Forge FC is ready for their upcoming match.
Simply stunning stuff! And finally, their goal! My word, what a rocket!
Now, let's get you up to date with Anthony Urciuoli and Match Day Preview on the Forge Audio Network.
Hey, Forge fans, it's the Forge Audio Network. Anthony Urciuoli with you. It's the Match Day Preview. Forge FC out west. 10 o'clock start Tuesday night against Vancouver FC. Forge's first ever trip to take on Vancouver FC. An opportunity here. Huge opportunity for Forge. We can look at what's gone on the last few weeks. Things have not gone Forge's way, bookended by a disappointing result against Valor over the weekend. Really, if we're going to take this experience, this Forge experience recently, and tie a bow on it and summarize it, it could all be summed up in that performance, right? Dominant stretches, possession, shot attempts. In this case, many of them did finally hit the target, but nothing to show for it. Missed opportunities, big chances, a 0 on the scoreboard for Forge FC as they lose to Valor 2-0. Valor, on the flip side, opportunistic, efficient, and they came out with a win. Forge now in I'm going to say it, I don't think it's hyperbolic. Yes, we're only 11 matches into the season for Forge, but we're nearing the midway point. Forge in third place now, and they are struggling to score goals. Right, through 11 matches, 4 wins, 4 draws, 3 losses. Kind of an ugly stat line. 11 goals for, 9 against. 11 goals for in 11 matches. Not good enough. That's 16 points for Forge FC on the table. But, like I said off the top, there's an opportunity here. Vancouver, dead last. Through 10 matches, they only have 9 points. Only 8 goals scored. 19 against. Almost giving up 2 goals per match. Whew. If ever there was a golden opportunity for Forge to finally hit their stride, open those floodgates, and find their offense, it is Tuesday night against Vancouver. Home and away numbers. Forge, by the way, still, despite that loss against Valor, still the best road team in the CPL. 5 matches, 10 points, 4 goals against, 4 goals, 4-3 against, but 3 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss. Vancouver, on the other side of that, 4 matches at home, 0 wins, 4 goals in 4 matches they've scored, and they've given up 12. They're giving up 3 goals per match at home. Again, I'll say it again, opportunity staring Forge in the face. Let's delve in here. Let's delve into the numbers. You know how much I love my stats. Shots on target per match this season. Forge, 4.2, right? That puts them in third. Vancouver, dead last, 2.8. I don't want to keep saying opportunity, but I feel like it's warranted. There's an opportunity here. Goal conversion rate. This is where things have been. This is where, again, if we're going to summarize Forge's struggles in terms of results, this is where it can be summarized. Goal conversion rate. Vancouver, first of all, dead last, 10.26. Forge, the second worst goal conversion rate in the CPL right now. Just not taking advantage of their opportunities, not being clinical enough. They rank 7th out of 8 teams. They are converting on 10.48% of their opportunities. They are nearly tied with Vancouver FC, who's in dead last overall, and in that ranking specifically. But then, ball possession. Forge, 56.1% per match. They trail only Cavalry, and that's by 0.3 of a percentage point. So, again, near the top. Vancouver, dead last. Here is their possession rate per match. 38.6 on average. They average 38.6% of the possession. Forge, again, maybe that'll be the last. No, I'll probably say it again, but I don't even care if it's redundant at this point. Opportunity, massive opportunity. Big chances. This is, as the stat title suggests, this is big. Forge, they're third in the league, but they're only one off the leaders who are tied for first. Big chances this season, 20. Vancouver FC, 14. Now here it is. Big chances missed for Forge. They lead the league in big chances missed with 14. That's how many big chances Vancouver's had all season. In other words, Forge, they've missed the same amount of big chances that Vancouver's had for the entire season. These two clubs head to head, they've played once before. That was at Tim Hortons Field 4 weeks ago in Hamilton. And it was a scoreless draw. Now, correlation, causation, this isn't in a literal sense, I guess. But this is where Forge's struggles start. I'm not saying this is what caused it, but this is where it started, and this is where we are now. Over the last several weeks, Forge, they've just not been clinical enough. They've not been capitalizing on their opportunities when they get them, and their opponents have. I mean, that's it. That's it at this point. And it all seemed to start that day at Tim Hortons Field, where Forge and Vancouver FC played to a scoreless draw. In that match, Forge had 71% of the possession. They had 18 shot attempts. 8 of those attempts were inside the box. Only 3 hit the target. None went in. Total passes in that match, by the way, Forge completed 613 passes in that scoreless draw with Vancouver. Vancouver had 249. Forge had better than double the amount of, almost triple the amount of passes. Almost triple the amount of passes that Vancouver had. And by the way, when I say pass, I mean, Forge still completed 85% of their passes. So not only were the completion was even that high. So look, all of that to too long, didn't read. Here we are. And I said this in the match in review after Forge's loss to Vancouver. I think if this was a different team with a different roster, with an unproven roster, you might look at this and go, look, this club's in trouble. I mean, they just don't have the guys who can get it done. But the difference is, this is Forge, up and down this lineup, proven. There is a pedigree of excellence, of quality, of clinical goal scoring. I mean, you have the league's all-time leading goal scorer on this roster. You have most valuable players for the year on this roster. You have the most prolific, some of the most prolific, not just one, multiple prolific goal scorers at this level on this team. So when you see that, you have to look at that and say, we can't panic. If they're getting the opportunities, they have to start going in. I mean, they just have to. This is almost defying logic and statistics and all those things and probability. It's not making a lot of sense right now. But once again, the big O, opportunity, staring Forge in the face against an expansion club who has given up at home an average of 3 goals per match, which, I mean, that's kind of unbelievable in itself. So we can look at these struggles and perhaps put them in the rear view mirror as early as Tuesday, because if you're successful against Vancouver, all of a sudden now you're feeling good about yourself. Some of the confidence is there. You don't feel a snake bitten. And then you go into the weekend with a home match against Atletico Ottawa, who's been playing pretty well lately. It's just some good, good feeling of Vancouver. You bring that home. At home, by the way, is a place Forge they've struggled, which is surprising this season. You get those good feelings built up, you bring them home, and you carry that to your home stadium in front of your home fans, and then you hope for a positive result there. And then all of a sudden, we're not talking about these struggles. We're talking about Forge challenging for the top spot in the CPL. All right, for more on Forge and on their opponents, who admittedly we don't know a lot about, Vancouver doesn't even really know a lot about them because they're still kind of new. We bring in CanPL.ca analyst Mitchell Tierney. So Mitchell, we have questions and we're looking for answers. The performances are there, the attempts, the big chances, the possession, all of those things that make Forge who they are, just hasn't resulted in enough goals. I mean, to put it simply, what have you seen? And I mean, what how do we fix this?
Yeah, I mean it's a very difficult one because, like you said, all of the signs are there that usually you would think would lead to the ball ending up at the back of the net. The players are there that have proven they can do it before at this level. You know, as early as last season when it was basically the exact same team and they were scored the most goals in the league. So, in terms of all of those indicators, you would think it would just continue to progress. But you know, soccer is a weird game, and goals, as you know, Coach Bobby Smirniotis will tell you every time you ask him, that's the toughest thing to do in the game and also the most important thing to do in the game. So if you look back maybe at, you know, they've had some of these stretches in the past. I think when you look at the latter half of last season, just before the playoffs, it was very similar. And actually, they took that trip to Valor, which they did just recently, and that was kind of when it culminated. I think they went 3 games without scoring, and 2 of them were back-to-back at IG Field. So IG Field, not really the greatest place conducive for Forge scoring. But with that being said, the way they almost found their way out of it going into the playoffs was just by, you know, running out a consistent front three and just kind of sticking with some guys. And it ended up being, you know, Pacia, Schwanier, and Borges, and just, you know, go guys like, obviously it's a busy start to the season, but you know, these guys need some consistency of minutes. So with the depth that they have, that can be hard to do sometimes, but you know, sometimes you just have to take a chance on a player and just give them that opportunity to keep going.
Yeah, and you made the point about, you know, these are guys that they've been here before. I mean, some of the most prolific goal scorers this league has ever seen are in
Literally
this
the most
lineup.
prolific goal scorer that the league has ever seen in terms of
Right.
Terran Campbell.
Yeah, and you know, he's another guy that is just it's snake bitten a little bit. So I think when you look at it, if this was any other roster, if this was a roster of just unproven guys, you might start to go like, oh, maybe there's an issue here. But to your point, sticking with it seems to be the way out of this because this is a proven roster.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's definitely little tactical approach things you can do differently. I don't think the back three necessarily worked the best for them the last 2 times they've put that out, and that, you know, the wing backs haven't maybe led to the attacking opportunities they thought they would. But I think for the most part, you know, for a side like Forge, I think anytime, you know, we've ever really doubted them in their entire existence, they've kind of you know, been able to quickly turn things around. Obviously, this year there's the interesting point of the regular season meaning more than it's ever meant before in the Canadian Premier League. So that's a key point where, you know, they don't quite have the same time to turn things around that they have had in the past, and it's not just about, you know, peaking right before the playoffs. So that remains a discussion. But for the most part, I mean, it's always proven to be you doubt Forge at your own peril, because no matter how bad they look, they always seem to bounce back when it matters most.
And if you kind of trace things back, there was the home match they had against Vancouver FC that resulted in a draw. And I think you may have been there as well. I think
Yeah.
it was one of the games you were at, and you know, Forge had 71% possession in that game, and they had like 18 shots or something. So, and it ended up being a scoreless draw, and that kind of started this a little bit. So there's an opportunity here though, because Vancouver FC has, as an expansion team, you know, you would expect it, but they've struggled. They've given up a lot of goals, especially at home. I think they're averaging around 3 against per match. It's inflated a little bit with some really bad performances, but all in all, this does seem like a very big opportunity that Ford just can't miss out on.
Oh, absolutely. I think, you know, if you want to look at a perfect opportunity to get back on track, you know, their next 2 games come against the 2 bottom teams in the league and 2 teams that have shipped a lot of goals. But Vancouver, I mean, they're really struggling defensively right now. Like, they played against Atletico Auto, who's second bottom in the league this weekend, and I mean, the fact that it was only a 1-0 loss for them was in and of itself a bit of a miracle, because you know, if Ottawa was sharp on the day, it could have been, especially in the first half, like immensely ugly. They have a lot of things to figure out there. I think the big one recently. I mean, they started the season actually. That was kind of the hallmark of their game, was that defensive organization, and we even saw that at Tim Hortons Field. Like, as much as they gave away chances to Forge, like, they did play a very solid defensive game, solid defensive structure. But when you're a new expansion side, players become more and more important. And we saw Rocco Romeo miss three games with a suspension. Now Pele Martinez is out 3 games with a suspension. Like, those misses that clubs like Forge or Pacific could maybe they'd be okay with a little bit more because they have guys to step in. You just you're putting like a 19-year-old or a 20-year-old in those positions if you're Vancouver, because they're such a young team. So I think their depth is really being called into question recently, and to come bring things full circle, that brings a big opportunity for Forge to break their duck.
Yeah, and I do want to ask you before you go, full disclosure to the audience, that we are recording this before the Canada-US final in the Nations League. So we can't discuss the result of that because it hasn't happened yet. But looking ahead to the Gold Cup, and just on a national scale, I think, Canada had its World Cup experience. It had some highs, it had some lows. We kind of came away from it with our expectations a little higher. What are you looking for here going into the Gold Cup? What is a reasonable expectation for this country heading into what's going to be a huge tournament, especially with the lead up into the next World Cup?
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, I'm kind of hoping that no matter what happens in the Canada-US game, they kind of treat that as the end of this 2022 World Cup cycle, as their opportunity to hopefully lift a trophy, but to, we know Atiba is going to say goodbye. We know a number of names, a number of the big names, Davies, David. I think Ismail Kone might not be available for the Gold Cup. Kyle Larin, I doubt Eustachio comes. So this is really an opportunity to give some guys some chances that maybe haven't gotten in because, you've had to win every game for the past couple of years. It's been critical. So aside from results, again, I think Canada's proven they're in the big 3 clearly in CONCACAF now. We'll see, but I mean, considering what Mexico showed at the Nations League, they might be in the big 2 right now. But I just hope that we see, to keep it league specific, guys like Zator and Victor Loturi get their opportunities, because this is a perfect opportunity, I think, for a lot of those guys who maybe have been on the outside looking in because you're trying to qualify for a World Cup over the last little bit. So this then builds that towards 2026 and some of those guys who might need these opportunities to start as early out as possible.
Awesome. All right. So we will end it at that. Mitchell Tierney, CanPL.ca. I know you're always working. I know you'll be covering the Canada-US match. Anything else you're working on we should be on the lookout for this week?
I don't think specifically. I mean, obviously we have a bunch of midweek matches, so it's mostly going to be a lot of game coverage right now. So those are the main things to check out over at CanPL.ca as the season. We're starting to see a lot of exciting storylines take place.
Yeah, and also check out the CanPL.ca newsroom, which goes live every week, and we could see Mitchell there as well. All right, enjoy the match, and I positive we'll talk to you again at some point.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, 3 keys to the match for Forge FC taking on Vancouver. Key number 1. If you shoot it, it will come. Forge, they have to stick with it. Again, among the league leaders in shots on target, they are the leaders in big chances created. I mean, leaders but second last in conversion rate. If you're not getting the opportunities, you could be worried, but they're there. Keep it going, stick with it, keep the persistence. You just feel like the pedigree in this lineup, the quality up and down, the proven lineup, the talent, just how prolific this lineup has been top to bottom. You have to know deep down, if you shoot it, it will come. The goals will start coming. They have to stick with it. Key number 2 for Forge FC. Relentless attack. Here's that word again, opportunity. I know it's kind of annoying, but it fits so well. I just can't think of a better way to use it right now than with Forge going into this match. there's an opportunity. Relentless attack. Forge have to pour it on. Forget gamesmanship. Forget, you can respect your opponent, but you know what I mean. Just be relentless. Just be savage. You need to get out of this rut. And if you have to use Vancouver to get there, that's the nature of the beast. Full 90, doesn't matter what the scoreline is at any point in the game. It has to be a consistent effort, and it has to be a full 100, like full throttle, relentless attack from start to finish. Get all that frustration this club has felt. Get it all out. Get it all out in Vancouver. Key number 3 for Forge FC. Search for the swagger. We talked about it a lot last year. Forge has a swagger about them. It's what makes all the other opponents, all the other opposing fan bases, it's what makes them hate Forge. Forge FC is the most hated club in the CPL, and I say that as a compliment. Why? Because they're proven. They win. They win when no one else really has, with the exception of one season. And there was a swagger to that. It's not a cockiness, it's a confidence. And it was called opposing coaches would refer to it as a Forge swagger. It's something Forge has had that no other team has had. Look for it. Find it. It's still there. And all it might take is a dominant performance and a positive result. And where they can get that is Tuesday night in Vancouver. Now, after the match, once you hear that final whistle, head on over to the whatever official account you follow of ours, probably all of them, but pick one. Maybe it's Twitter, maybe it's Facebook, maybe it's YouTube. Head on over. I will be live. The game's at 10 in Vancouver. 10 local time here in Hamilton. So we're looking at around midnight. I'm going to have to, pour on the espresso a little bit, but I'll be here as bushy-tailed as I can be, live with instant reaction following that whistle. So hopefully we are talking about 3 more points for Forge FC. All right, we've said it all. I will talk to you Tuesday night, but also kind of Wednesday morning.
Forge FC is prepared, and now you are informed. This has been Match Day Preview with Anthony Urciuoli on the Forge Audio Network. Subscribe on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.